Spirits tonight, and they are with Winter Varsity at the U of I. Please look them up. Give them a visit on campus if you have a chance. But as we talk about how great our God is, I wanted to share some exciting news with you this evening. We had a woman named by Ruth Moore who held tonight what we called our drive-through fund drive. Obviously, we were hoping to make the effort to raise money tonight so that we can hopefully get to a time where we can end homelessness altogether. But tonight I am proud to announce that through that fund drive alone, we are now sitting at $60,000 raised towards our $100,000 goal, which means we only need $40,000 left. And so I just wanted to share that about $9,384 alone were raised thanks to First United Methodist Church and Ruth Moore. And so we thank all of the congregation there and the community that made that possible. Obviously, we're here to bless people, and so that is truly one of the greatest blessings we get to share with you this evening. So again, we're at 60,000, and we look forward to seeing where we can go from here. And so as we were talking about musical selections earlier, I'm proud to announce that I also had the opportunity to share with you that I get to introduce our keynote speaker. He told me to keep it short and sweet. I think his music will speak for itself as well as his testimony. But George Dennehy, he's already been nationally recognized. You'll see him on social media, but I just wanted to share what I took away from his story. I think the theme tonight is about overcoming our struggles and looking towards the talents that God has blessed us with and not letting anything hinder those talents from being seen or shared. And I think we can all bless each other in our communities with our services, our acts of love and kindness, but also we can bless others with our gifts. And so tonight, George Dennehy gets to come and share his story, but also his testimony and why he chose to pursue a passion in music, and maybe how it's even encouraged him to touch other lives as well. And so without further ado, I get to proudly bring up to the stage now, George Dennehy, our keynote speaker.
Good evening, everybody. How's everyone feeling tonight? Good, feeling good. You know, I wanted to share something real quick. A lot of the times, people assume that I have my arms in my shirt. So one question I get a lot in my life is, are you cold? And being here tonight, I can say yes. Yes, I am cold. Well, listen, it is such an honor to be here and to be a part of such a special evening and to just share in this joy with you and celebrate with you all the difference that has been made and will continue to be made. So I want to thank you at home and Melissa and everyone for really just inviting me to be a part of such a special night. I hope that you are encouraged and inspired and entertained, but I also want you to be challenged. And after you leave here tonight, be challenged to look at your own struggles in a different way, because we all go through challenges, we all go through struggles, we all face obstacles in life. And I found that the important thing is, what do we do when kind of life throws those curveballs at us? Because I'm a firm believer that God has made each and every one of us on purpose and for a purpose, and that we can make a difference in the world, and we can find our full potential in Him and through Him. But we so easily as human beings hinder ourselves when life gets tricky. Life gets tricky a lot because we live here on planet Earth. So I want to open up with a song and just worship with you tonight. One of my favorite songs to sing is a song called How He Loves. And if you know it, I want to invite you to sing along too. Likewise, and you're more than welcome to stand if you'd like. You can sit down too. You can stay seated, or you can lay down too. I don't know what you do in Champaign, Illinois. It's my first time here. I'm really excited to be here. But I just want to share this song tonight with you. And real quick before I do, if you're anything like me, I can tend to overcomplicate God's love. Or even overcomplicate the gospel a little bit. Sometimes I get in my own head and get in my own doubts, and I think that maybe God loves me less because I messed up in this area. Or maybe God will love me more and bless me more or do better things for me if I just do better in certain areas of my life. Or if I act better here, or if I am stronger in my Bible studies, or this or that, and I can just tend to overcomplicate it. And I like singing this song and really just reflecting and meditating on it because it's just simple that God loves me. God loves you, not because of anything I've done or anything I am, but because that's who he is, that he loves us unconditionally, which means it's not based on us. It's because of him and his love for us. So let's just sing this together tonight as we continue. Hey, again, my name is George Dennehy. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm just thrilled to be able to be a part of tonight and share a bit of my story with you and some of the experiences I have, and share a little bit about my family, and really just encourage you and remind you that all of us have our challenges, all of us have our struggles, but through Christ we can be overcomers, and we can find what we can bring to the world and how we can make a difference. But before I get into all that, before I get into all those details and stuff, I need to address something. I need to address the armless elephant in the room. Because here's the thing, like I said, people ask me questions all the time. Like, I do get the question, are you cold? Are your arms in your shirt? I get that question all the time, but other questions I get are just the ones you'd expect. Kind of, what happened to you? Where are your arms? Oh my, what happened? And that's just something that I've been used to my whole entire life. And I could go on with many stories of when I've been asked that and things I've told people, and I could go on, but I want to share one time in particular that I don't think I'll ever forget. So, I live in Richmond, Virginia, which is about 2 hours from Virginia Beach. And it's so interesting. I feel like I talked to at least 4 or 5 people here today that are, I'm from Virginia Beach, or I have friends who live in Virginia Beach, or my sister. And you guys have a lot of connections to Virginia Beach right here. It's interesting. So I live about 2 hours from there, and I go to the beach every summer because you wouldn't guess it just from looking at me, but I actually love to swim. I really love swimming. I'm not the best at swimming, I'll say that. When I'm in the deep water, like deep out in the ocean, I do a lot of kicking and a lot of praying. Lord, please just keep me afloat. I promise I'll be good. So again, I'm not the best swimmer. I will brag about myself, though, real quick. I can do a very good pencil dive. Flawlessly. I don't even have to try. I love it. But a couple of years ago, I was at the beach, and I was swimming in the ocean, and, I was not wearing a shirt, so people could clearly tell that something was missing. That 2 things were missing, actually. You could tell. But I was deep enough out in the water where I was swimming around, and nobody was really noticing me because my shoulders and everything was under the water. I was just really barely up there, trying to get some air. But then when I was done, I swam back up to the shore, to the beach area, and I started to walk up on the beach, and I passed this family. And it was a mom and a dad, and they had a little kid. Like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old little girl. And here's the thing you need to understand about children. They don't have what? Filters. Exactly. And I need to say this too. Here's the thing about adults. Also, I've learned that adults don't have filters. Yeah. Humans, we just don't have filters, but kids especially. So this kid, this little girl, she looks at me, and she gives me this really confused, almost just weird, confused look. And I don't know if she was thinking that either this is some kind of dolphin thing or sea creature or what, but she looked really confused, and then she just blurts out, "What's wrong with you?" Just right in my face, "What's wrong with you?" And I looked at her, and I just told her, when I was your age, I didn't eat my vegetables. Really changed her face there from confused to frightened, which was definitely my goal. I love it. It's a lot of fun. At that moment, I kind of half expected her dad to just punch me in the face right at that moment, which, what was I going to do, block it? No. So I was expecting it, I was waiting for it, and she looked at her dad kind of like, and her dad just stood there, and all he did was this. That's it. So I kind of think that maybe she is still, at this point, years later, still eating her vegetables every single day. So her arms don't fall off. So if there's any kids in here, eat vegetables. You will lose your arms if you don't. So on January 19th, 1994, I was born without arms. It was a complete surprise. I wasn't only born without arms, I was born pretty far away from here in a country called Romania. And here's the thing that we need to understand about a lot of other countries and how they perceive disabilities and differences and things like deformities, things like that. When a child is born different in a lot of these other countries, it's not a good thing. It's even seen as a curse. So when I was born, I was immediately put in an orphanage where I was neglected and abandoned and left for dead and completely written off. Because everyone, the nurses and everyone, they all saw me and they literally thought that I had evil spirits living inside of me because I was born like this. So they put me in a crib all by myself, way in the back, and they wouldn't even hold me or even feed me. They would just walk by and throw a bottle in my crib, and that was that. Because they really were terrified of me and thought that I would curse them, curse their families if they would touch me. There was even a doctor who came into the orphanage at one point, and he would kind of walk around and give a medical evaluation of all the babies, and he came over to my crib, and he looked down and saw me, and he saw the condition that I was in, and he told the nurses, there's no hope for him. There's no hope for him. He's just going to die soon anyways. He should never have been born. Just completely written off. And I don't know if any of you in here have felt that pain of just completely being written off by the world. Just completely neglected, completely abandoned. This doctor, he took a piece of paper and he taped it to my crib and he wrote a month and a year. And he left one blank and he told the nurses, you fill in the date of when he dies. You fill in the date of when he dies. And he titled that little piece of paper, Death Date. So, the beginning of my life is not a very good story. Being abandoned by my parents, being abandoned and neglected by these nurses, and even this doctor. And left for dead, but little did I know, because I was a newborn, little did I know that God even then was moving and working and orchestrating my steps and orchestrating my life. Even in the darkest moments of life, God is still moving, God is still working, God is still in control. He began moving in the hearts and minds of a couple here in the States by the name of Mike and Sharon Dennehy. And this couple had 3 kids of their own, and God was leading them to this idea of adoption. And kind of what that would look like. Mike and Sharon Dennehy, they had some friends of theirs that had gone through the adoption process already, so they were able to talk to them about it and learn more about what it looked like. And eventually they took a newsletter from these friends. And I hear this story from my parents and tell people about the story, and just the thought of like a physical newsletter is out there. Because now you can go to adoption websites and see all the kids that need to be adopted. But this was like a real newsletter. And they looked through it, and they're looking at all these children that needed homes and needed forever families. And there was one picture that really caught their eye in particular, and it was a black and white picture of a baby with no arms. And the description under this picture read, "Baby boy, born without arms, desperately needs a loving family." And then the last sentence said, "This boy will soon die." ... And when these people, when this couple saw this and read this newsletter and read that sentence, they knew immediately what God was calling them to do, that God was calling them to fill in those dots. ... Kind of he's in this situation, he will soon die, ... But the story doesn't have to be over. And I think there is a lot to be said about the way that description was written. You know, because oftentimes in life, we find ourselves in situations, we find ourselves in seasons where it kind of just feels like the end. It kind of just feels like there's no hope. It kind of feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I know that's super cheesy and corny to say. I don't have anything else to say about it except that. But we just feel like there's like, what good can come from this situation? And these things happen to us, and sometimes we are just at a loss. But man, if we just remember ... the story's not over. God is still working. God is still moving. So they knew what they needed to do. They flew to Romania. They went through all the paperwork, did all the stuff. They flew to Romania. They picked me up for the first time. I was 1.5 and I weighed 9 pounds. I was sick. I couldn't hold my head up. I was pale. I was dying. But my parents, they really stepped into my story and stepped into my life and changed the trajectory of my life through their love, through their passion and their commitment to adopting me and bringing me into their family. Now, I love adoption for so many reasons. The biggest, because it's quite literally saved my life. But I love adoption because this idea of children with no homes, children with no families, with no parents, with no future, with just nothing, but then parents like mine stepping into their stories, picking them up, giving them a new name. My parents gave me a new name, they gave me a home, they gave me love, they gave me everything. They gave me life. You know, and I just can't help but wonder how similar that sounds. That reminds me of something. It reminds me a little bit of the gospel. Kind of what God does for us when He looks down and He sees us in our orphan state. And He came here to bring us home, to bring us into His family. He gave us a new name, a new hope, a new future. It's a beautiful thing. I always say, you know, the gospel is, we can't ever replicate it in any kind of way. We can't even come close. But if we could try and fail, I think adoption is one of the closest things that kind of gives us that picture of what God does for us. Even though we didn't deserve it. I didn't do anything for my parents. I was just an armless baby. My parents had no idea what they were going to get themselves into when they adopted me. They had friends, they had family, even saying, no, you don't want that. What about a normal baby? What about a normal kid? How are you going to take care of a kid with no arms? He's probably going to need help for the rest of his life. Do you know what you're doing? And my parents said, no. We don't know what we're doing. We don't, but we know that God made him, God created him, so surely God will sustain him. And if God made you, if God created you and knit you together in your mother's womb, which He did, you have been knitted together, created purposely, just the way you are, on purpose. Surely God will sustain you through whatever trials that you face. My parents believed this for my life. And I want to share just a little bit more about my family. I could go on for a very long time about my family, but I'll just keep it short and brief. My parents, they had 3 kids of their own. They adopted me, and then they went on to adopt 9 more children from 5 other countries. So to put it plainly, my parents have 3 homemade cookies and 10 store-bought cookies. And if it's anything like, I just have to say, if it's anything like my mom's actual baking, you want to go with the store-bought. Which y'all did, because they brought me here, so this is great. This is awesome. My family is comprised, is that a word? Is made up of kids from all over the world, ranging from Romania, yours truly, to India, Thailand, Ethiopia, China, and the state of Connecticut. I'm missing. No, I don't think I am. We're just one big, crazy, sometimes happy family. And I want to share with you just real quick a story that I will remember about my family. I could go on and on, but one time in particular, I can remember this. About a year or so after I was adopted, my mom, she got on her, I kind of call it an adoption kick, where she kind of just got addicted to adoption. Like really, like she just kept on doing it, and she just never stopped. Or they never stopped. My mom is the gas pedals, and my dad is the brakes in this whole operation. Their words, not mine. But about a year or so after I was adopted, my mom came across a child that was an orphan and needed a forever family. This child was born in India, but there was something pretty unique about him. He didn't have arms, just like me. So my mom, thinking this is what a really very interesting situation, very cool situation where we could adopt this boy too, and George and him could kind of grow up as brothers, and they could face their challenges together and learn how to do things together, and they wouldn't be alone, right? They wouldn't be alone in their struggle. So they adopted this boy and named him James, which is actually my middle name. So they were already They were already running out of names to pick, I guess. And they adopted this boy named James, and I remember so vividly when James came home, it was a very special moment because he walked in the door and my mom said, George, this is your brother James. And James, this is George. And I said hi. James didn't say anything. But he walked over, we were in the living room, and he walked over to this box. And he opened the box with his little foot, and he started reaching in the box and started pulling toys out. And this box of toys was mine. This box of toys was my box of toys. So I remember feeling this sudden rage. This rage when I saw what he was doing, because I just had this thought, I must have been 3 or 4. I just remember having this thought of, what are you doing? I was thinking, you've been here, 10 minutes? I've been here a whole year, I own this house. So I saw what he was doing, and I went over and I did something very, very, very secretive, but very effective. I walked over to my new brother from India, and I took my foot and I tripped him. I just tripped him with my foot. And here's the thing about falling without arms. You don't catch yourself. There's nothing, I can't catch myself when I fall, and I fall a lot sometimes. And I knew this. He's like me. He doesn't have arms. I'm going to trip him, and he's going to fall. So he fell, and he started crying, and it began to sting, and I kind of started to walk away feeling good about myself. There you go. You learn it. You can't just do whatever you want. You got to earn your place here when you're adopted. Okay. So I started to walk away, and in my peripheral vision, I saw this leg in my side, and all of a sudden, this leg tripped me. So while he's down on the ground, he reaches out and he trips me, and I fall, and I hit my head, and I start crying, and it just becomes this whole thing. And growing up as brothers, we were very different. It's very interesting because we both don't have arms, but we could not be any more different. And we would get into fights a lot. We always shared a room. For some reason, I think my parents just said, put the armless kids together. That room can have footprints all over it. We're not going to mess with it. So they just put us together, and we would fight all the time. And, the only way we can have a fight, if I got in a fight with somebody, I would just kick them. And that's what I did. So we just kick each other. And the hardest part of your foot is what? The heel. So we'd just be hitting each other with our heels and just going crazy like this. And, but we'd have to sit down to fight. So, we'd get mad at each other, right? We'd get mad at each other, and then we'd say, okay, well, let's sit down. So, no cheap shots to, where you can't block it. So, we'd sit down, and we'd just be flailing our legs at each other. And my dad, being how he is, I'm sure Melissa could picture my dad saying this. My dad would say, George, stop healing James. James, stop healing George. And we would stop because we just thought how ridiculous that sounded. But growing up in my family was so special, so unique. And I have to give my parents a lot of credit. Because as you can imagine, for myself and some of my siblings, a lot of the challenges we had to face, there's not a rule book, there's not a handbook for raising a kid with no arms. You know what I mean? There's not this YouTube tutorial video that you can say, okay, how to do this with no arms, how to do that with no arms. There kind of is now because I've put some stuff out there just for fun. But there wasn't back in the day. So a lot of what I had to learn how to do just came naturally. Because I was born like this, because I was born this way, using my feet and learning how to do things with my feet mostly came naturally. But I tell people, man, the amount of times I failed at something, or the amount of times I thought I couldn't do something, I could count on my toes 20 times over. Because I was a kid. I was a kid that was kind of had a bad attitude. I didn't think I was capable. I didn't think I could figure things out. I wanted things done for me. I thought I needed help with everything. But my parents were mean. They weren't mean. My parents were strict. They really pushed me to figure things out for myself. They really pushed me to learn how to do things. Learn how to overcome. Try different things. Sometimes you have to try a different way. Because there'd be times when I would try to button my shirt and I would just not get it, and I'd get really frustrated and angry, take a break, go back at it, maybe from a different viewpoint, maybe from a different way, and eventually figure it out. And we have to do that sometimes, right? I mean, when we face a challenge, when we face an obstacle in our life, whether it be personal, whether it be in our business or family, sometimes you have to face things with a different perspective. And that can really make the difference in overcoming it or not. Are we going to be flexible? Can we look at things from a different viewpoint and try maybe a different way? Because sometimes that's what needs to be done. And my parents really pushed that for me, and I tell people this all the time. I go around and speak at schools and churches and just different places, and I tell people, basically, I do everything that everybody else does. Everything. I just do a lot of things differently. But different doesn't mean less. That's something that I think we as students need to remember, and we all need to remember, because I think a lot of us sometimes can feel different. We can feel like maybe don't quite fit in. Maybe we've been through so much in our lives. Maybe we've had such a rough upbringing. Maybe we've made so many mistakes in our journeys that we just feel so different than everybody else. And that might be true. We might be different, but that doesn't make any of us less. And in our differences, really, we can find who we are and who God can bring us to be. From an early age, my parents noticed that I was musical. From an early age, my parents noticed that I really liked to play music, and it really all started when I watched a movie. It was like some Disney movie, and I went, after the movie, I walked out of the living room, went to the music room, and started playing the music from the movie. So I must have been 6 years old, and I just started playing the same music from the movie without learning piano or anything. I just knew the tune, and I liked to play it. And that was that. My parents decided, okay, maybe he has some kind of musical thing, maybe. And my three older siblings were all taking music lessons already at our church. And my parents approached the music teacher who was teaching them and other kids in the church and stuff. And my mom said, hey, Jennifer, her name was Jennifer Petrie, said, hey, Jennifer, we're ready to do another music lesson with you, with another one of our kids. And it'll be George. And I think Mrs. Petrie kind of thought, the one without arms? But my mom said, yeah, it'll be George. And Mrs. Petrie kind of thought, okay, let me get back to you on this. And about a week or so later, maybe a little more, Mrs. Petrie, her name was Jennifer, but I just call her Mrs. Petrie, so that's who it is. Mrs. Petrie came back to my parents the next week, and she told them, okay, so what I did was I took the last week to teach myself how to play the cello with my feet. Because I just wanted to see if it could be done. And I wanted to find some kind of baseline, some kind of starting point to help George. And then to figure it out with him together. But we need some kind of baseline. We need some kind of starting point. And just to see if it can even be done. And she figured out how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with her feet. And from there, we took lessons. I started my lessons. She kind of showed me the starting point, kind of maybe things she figured out. And between her just being a teacher and me being the artist kid, we figured out a way for me to play a cello with my feet. And I haven't really appreciated it as much as I should have. Growing up and kind of thinking back on my life and my story and some of the things that I've done, I think there's something really special about what Mrs. Petrie did. There's something really to be said about seeing somebody with a challenge, right? Seeing somebody with a story, with a challenge, with an obstacle, and even a goal. They just don't know how to get there. But seeing something like that and using what you have, using your talents, using your gifts, your resources, your time, and stepping in to their story to help them along, to help them reach that point where they can overcome, where they can reach that goal and even reach that dream and achieve. I think there's something really to be said about that. And I've had people in my life who have done that for me, from my music teacher to my regular teachers at school and my driving instructor when it came time for me to get my learner's permit. Like, people in my life have been so gracious in coming alongside me to help me overcome. And I've been thinking about this trip and this event and what y'all do, and man, I just want to applaud you, if I could. I can applaud you. Applaud you in the service and the ministry that you do in a very similar way, stepping in to different stories. in walking with individuals to achieve their purpose, to achieve their dreams, to find their path. There's really something to be said about that. You know, I got to a point in my life, kind of around middle school and high school, which are tough years. You know, and those are kind of tough years to begin with, but I got to this point where I was experiencing, for the first time, kind of bullying and feeling left out and name calling and just a lot of nastiness from other kids in my school. And it was a really, really tough time, and I really started to question my life. I really started to question what God was doing, you know? Because I grew up in church, you know, a little bit my backstory and my faith. I grew up in the church world, and I grew up reading my Bible verses and singing all the churchy songs, and I grew up with all of that in my life. But I got to this point in middle school where I really started to question, does Jesus really love all the little children? And I started to think, you know, if God is so good, and if God is so loving, then why did he make you without arms? You know, I couldn't comprehend how a loving and perfect and just perfect deity like God could just forget or intentionally make me without arms. Why is he making me go through this? I mean, like, I get it. It's already enough to be born without two arms that everybody else has, but also to make me go through all this bullying. I'm being pushed in the hallway at school. I'm having my plate in the cafeteria knocked on the floor. Like, these kids were mean in my school. It was hard. I'm being called names down the hallway so everyone can hear. I stopped eating lunch at school altogether because I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I spent every night just angry and crying and wanting to kill myself because I didn't think that life was worth it. I hated it. I hated not having arms. I hated myself, and I just couldn't help but wonder, God, how are you so loving? How are you so good if this is my life? I don't know if anyone out here tonight has ever been in a situation or been in a place in their life when maybe you kind of know what I'm talking about. You know, maybe you've really experienced some really hard times. That question, how could you, God? What kind of loving God does this? Why do I have to suffer like this? Where are you? Where are you? I just want you to know, if you've been there in your life, or maybe you're there now, just know that you're not alone in that. There's one thing I remember, or even know, about going through life's seasons, and seasons of darkness, seasons of anger, depression, suicidal thoughts. If there's one thing I know about these things, it's that we feel so alone when we're in them. We feel so alone and isolated and that nobody understands and nobody gets us. We just feel like we're the only ones in the world going through it. So naturally, we isolate. We close up. We bottle up. We don't connect with other people. We don't open up about it because we just don't think it's worth it. And I really believe that's the wrong thing to do. You know, God didn't make us. God didn't create us to go through life alone. Life, with all of its good, all of its bad, and everything in between, we're not meant to go through it alone. Not completely. I wish I would have opened up about what I was going through. I wish I would have opened up about how I was feeling, but I didn't. My parents didn't even know. I did a really, really good job at hiding it. You know, the enemy had such a strong hold on my heart. You know, I'm a firm believer that I believe that one of the goals of the enemy, of the devil, Satan, just the enemy, God's adversary, one of his goals is to separate us, is to try and separate us from God. He wants us to feel like we cannot be used by God, that we don't matter. He wants us to feel like we're worthless. And living in this sinful and broken world, it's pretty easy for us to feel like that sometimes. Pretty easy to feel like we can't make a difference, that we're no good, that we're too messed up, that we have made too many mistakes, that we're too just broken. That we're too broken to be used by God. It's easy for us to feel like that. And here's something I want to share with you tonight. Now, I'm up here, and you can see that I don't have arms. You can see that I'm disabled. But I'm not the only one in here who's disabled. I'm not the only disabled one in here. You know, as I think about, like, disability, what is that? What is a disability? I think a disability can be something like whatever could hinder us from reaching our full potential. Right? Whatever could stand in our way. That's kind of what a disability can be. So I'm standing here and I'm thinking, man, the fact that I don't have arms is not my disability. At this point in my life, it's not my disability. It's everything that goes on the inside. Because eventually, in my life, I must have been 17 or 18, God did a miracle in my life. You know, I was praying for so long that God would give me arms. For so long that God would make me wake up one morning and I'd have arms. And guess what? He did. And then I forgot to eat my vegetables. Back to square one. Just kidding. That never happened. I never woke up with arms. But I was telling God, okay, God, if you are real, if you are so good, if you are so wonderful, then make me wake up with arms. That miracle would be so amazing. I could go and tell people about it, and the pictures, and there's one without arms, there's one with arms. How crazy would that be? That'd be awesome, right, God? You know? And I was kind of treating God like this genie in a bottle, and maybe you've done that too, where you kind of have even said, God, if you could just do this for me, if you could just fix this for me, if you could just get me out of this situation, if you could just do this or do that, then I'll be set. Then I'll trust you. Then I'll follow you. Sometimes it's so easy for us as humans to treat God like, God, first you do this, then I'll love you. Then I'll know that you're real, that you're good. You know, when faith comes before the miracle. We're called to believe before he even does anything. And it's kind of this thing where it's like, even if he doesn't, we still believe. That's what Daniel did. So Daniel says, like, God, even if you don't deliver me from the fire, I'll still trust you. I'll still love you. I'm still with you. So it's this thing where it's like, man, that's what we're called to do is to God, I need help with this. I need your grace. I need this. But God, even if you don't, I still trust you. So the miracle that I was looking for was to just have arms and be like everybody else, but God did a completely different miracle in my life. You see, He showed me the truth of who I am. Psalm 139, like I mentioned earlier, says that we were knitted together in our mother's wombs. And I saw that at one point, and it kind of clicked. It kind of clicked. Something very simple, very obvious, but when we're going through life struggles, we forget the truth that I am not in control. I'm not in control. There are things that happen in my life. There are ways that there are things that I go through, and the way I was born that I have no control over, because I was born in a sinful and broken world, and we deal with things sometimes that we don't control. But there is a God who is in control and who is perfect and loving, and He knows infinitely more than I do. And it got to this point where I just had to decide, okay, God, maybe you know more than I do. Maybe you have a better idea of who I can be than I do. Maybe you have a plan and a purpose for all of this, so please, just reveal that to me. Show me that me being born without arms was a mistake, that wasn't an accident, that I wasn't cursed. But show me that you have something for me. Show me how I can make a difference in this world. And I kind of want to close with that tonight. I want this to be our prayer for all of us. You know, I know everyone coming into this room is coming. You're all coming from different stories and backgrounds and experiences. And maybe you've come in here with struggles of your own, with weights of your own. just the burdens of life can feel so overwhelming sometimes. It can feel like it's just too much. But I just want you to remember, I want you to be encouraged and challenged to hold fast, to hold on to that truth, that God is in control even when we're not. And we need to be okay with that. And even a step further, when we're going through suffering, when we're going through hard times, we can even be thankful for those times. We can even be thankful because of what they can create in us, how they can help us grow, how God can use those times even to help others. You know, sometimes, a pastor one time told me, you know, sometimes we get in this mindset of, God, why am I going through this? Like there's like a very specific reason of why we're going through something, like a very specific life event that's leading us to somewhere. When very simply, we might go through something so that we could be a service to other people who are also going through that. We can get through something, we can overcome through His love and through His grace to us. We can overcome life's events, and then we got through it, and we can help those who are also going through that, need that love, that need that guidance. We can be that for other people. Again, stepping into someone else's story to help them get through life's challenges. Now, I want to close up here with a song. I don't want to take too much of your time tonight because there's still so many wonderful things in store. But I want to close with one more song, and it's a song that I wrote called "Not Abandoned," and I think this kind of encapsulates, I'm saying all these words, I don't know for words, encapsulates really my whole heart and what I think is a message for tonight, that, you know, this is a reminder to people and to you, to me, that even in life's darkest times, we're not alone. And we can remember that. So this is called "Not Abandoned." You're not offended. Thank y'all so much again for allowing me to just come and spend the evening with you and just share with you. It's really been an honor for me, and I'll be here afterwards too. So please say hi to me and shake my hand if you want. I'd love to say hi to you. And I know tonight's going to be just a wonderful rest of the evening. So thank you again. Yeah.
George, we can't thank you enough for that special opportunity this evening, and I think it's just a testament that when God orders our steps, we just follow suit and follow our journey through, and God will surely bless us to the end. And so, George, we can't thank you enough for your presence tonight. And so, as we continue in that spirit of being blessed by musical talents, we are going to have the privilege of re-inviting Andy Kim and Todd Epps back up to the stage from, again, InterVarsity on U of I's campus, and they're going to bring us again another musical selection.